to another episode of the Independent Mindset podcast for candid conversations, staying curious, and simply being better. So, Jason, today is part 4 of 4 of our archetype series. So I'm kind of sad, actually. I'm not super looking forward to ending this because it's actually been some nice, fairly casual, but slightly informative talk I think we've been providing here for the last few weeks. So we'll have to say adios to the archetypes after this week. But before we get into that, what's new with you, man?
Oh, right now it's the regular. It's just back to work, still doing renos through the summer. Gonna try to get out to maybe go camping, that sort of thing. But since we last recorded was just a few days ago, I can't say there's a whole lot that's new. Just a little further every day. How about you?
Yeah, you've been digging some trenches there in your backyard, shoveling a lot.
There's a lot of shoveling. I've not gone to the gym in 2 weeks, and I've done nothing but renovations. In the last week and change of that has been basically shoveling.
What's the what would you say are the best/worst differences between working out outside, the shovel or whatever, or the gym versus the gym?
Well, the gym, you know what you're going to get. Like, you can actually work on hypertrophy. You can work on maximal strength. You're going to hit everything.
Muscles,
yeah, it's more controllable. Whereas with outdoor work, you're going to get a great workout. You'll get great exercise, but you're not necessarily going to build the muscles that you're looking to build. But you'll be fatigued. You'll enjoy it. It's outdoors. But it's like we were saying earlier when we were chatting a while ago, one thing that I know that I'm developing that I was lacking was my grip strength. So when I go back to the gym, I'm really looking forward to doing some deadlifts. Because that was one thing I was grabbing just fine at 275. As soon as I went to 315, if I did more than 2 reps, the hands would start to open up. So I'm thinking that when I go back, maybe it'll take me a week or two to get back, comfortable with 315 again. But once I do get back to it, I'm thinking the grip strength is going to give me those extra reps that like all the strength was there for it, but the limiting factor was just hanging onto the bar.
Yeah, no, totally. Anything, especially back oriented, where you have to grab a lot of heavy weight with the bar or with dumbbells. I can see that helping out for sure. I used to go to the gym with this guy who's super, super serious. So I talked to him once in a while at the gym, and he used to have maybe a day a week or every 2 weeks, something like that, dedicated strictly to forearms so that he was able to then lift more. And according to him, it was like 10 or 25% more, or 10 to 25% maybe. I don't recall, but it was pretty substantial. So strengthening your forearms to be able to, lift a lot heavier for your big compound exercises like deadlifts.
Well, it becomes a weak point, right? Because you're always squatting, you're always benching, you're always military pressing. So the big prime movers get really strong. But especially like deadlifts, the most obvious example, if you can't grab onto the bar, doesn't matter how strong you are, you're not going to lift that weight. So it quickly becomes a limiting factor to what you can actually do. And then when we're talking about, say, like you said, like outdoor work versus workout work, that it's all grip strength. Like, you're always prying on something, you're always pulling on something. And if you don't have the grip strength, a lot of the work you're going to do is not going to be as good, because you'll have to go back to the shop, get another tool, or you have to fidget with this, or you have to be longer on that. It's just going to slow you down for no reason. But I'm kind of enjoying, like, I can feel really the work in the hands being done.
Yeah, another one, I've done a few of these because I have a new house, but also my aunt just got a new house, so I've been helping her with electrical and installing, new pot lights and that kind of stuff. I got to say, that kind of work, overhead work, doesn't matter how much you military
shoulders.
press or shoulder press, whatever, it does not matter. But having your arms up for an extended period of time, that's a workout and a half. And then what would start happening too with all that basically screwing and unscrewing and fidgeting with these fairly strong wires that you have to bend and stuff, it would start like almost cramping up my hands. Wow, I was like arms, feet, cramping up my hands, which again, you're like, there's not enough training that could get you to not cramp up in the hands. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, because the gym is great for for that prime movers, but really functional stuff like that. There's no finger machine, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing compared to just good old natural work. But you won't get like big quads, big chest, big biceps from, just regular trades work.
Can you imagine you go to the gym and there's like these tiny machines for like your fingers and actually there's no muscles in the fingers, but your hands. You do like
Just a little bit.
I thought it was pretty much entirely tendon, and every like the strength you get from your fingers are from your hands and your arm that are
A
connected to the
lot, but if
tendons.
I'm not mistaken, like there's a little bit, like not at the very tip, but like in like right here and there.
Yeah, the first and second
Yeah, phalange, if I'm not
joints. Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. And again, the kin degree's far back, but it
yeah.
seems to be.
Anyways, that's what I always read, or was told. Who knows? It's kind of like when someone tells you, "Oh yeah, that actor. Did you know like Vin Diesel was gay?" And then you repeat it to everybody your entire life like it's a fact.
I thought really, he was. Wait, is he not?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. We'll get him on the podcast.
Yeah.
How about you, man? What's new? While I Google hand anatomy,
we can tell him it's all about the family and Corona. I'm good. I'm also going to be working on a lot of house stuff this weekend. We got Canada Day coming up, actually tomorrow. So stripping all the carpet, the floors to put in the hardwood floor throughout the weekend. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Cool. That's a worthwhile project, and it's going to be the baby's room.
Yep, that's part of it. Baby coming.
That is very cool, man. How you feeling about that?
Pretty good. Like still unreal. Like it's not happening, and then some bouts it is happening, and it feels scary, and other bouts it feels magical. So yeah, it'll be really cool. I mean, I think it'll drastically change our lives, but again, for the good. Like at the end of the day, it's all the parents and the grandparents. Are all super excited. So they've been through it, so they know how great of a thing it is.
Obviously, I've never been through that, but I feel like it's one of those that until it happens, it's not real until it's real, sort of thing.
Yeah, I've always told people the single biggest change that could happen pretty much in anyone's life that's in your control. Okay, I'm not saying there's a car accident and everybody dies, but the single greatest change in one's life is when you and your wife, are about to deliver the baby to the next day where the baby's delivered and you bring it home. That's got to be the single biggest change in your life. Bigger than marriage, bigger than graduation, bigger than whatever.
Oh, for sure, man. It has to be, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're never going back to what it was, no matter what.
No, I'm responsible for this completely vulnerable, useless human being for a long time. And basically I'm also legally responsible for it for 18 years.
Yeah. And minimum. There's no handbook. There's just figure it out. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. So how do I feel? Good. But at the same time, once it happens, I can really tell you how I'm feeling.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah. So right before we dive into it, do you have anything for our segment canceled?
Well, right now, hand anatomy, because holy shit, I'm just like looking at pictures of hands right now. It looks like there's muscles in like the bottom part of the finger. And I feel so bad for this because, like, Jason, you have a degree in legit like anatomy shit. You should know this.
Yeah, was Will right here?
Maybe. The drawings are actually kind of unclear. Some have it, some don't, but it's just like the different depths of muscle and cartilage and stuff. Anyways, not important. I got something for canceled.
Do you? All right.
I crowdsourced this one, so I cheated a little bit.
All right.
So, great artist, the king of pop, Michael Jackson. Black or white? Can't tell me that's going to stick around for a while. Or even
you mean this?
The song.
Oh, okay.
But even Michael Jackson as an artist, I know separate the art from the artist, tout ça. But we'll give him a 50-50, but definitely the song Black or White.
Okay, and so that song is all about acceptance, right? It doesn't matter if you're black or white. Well, it's a great song.
Yeah, I know it is, but yeah.
So why do you think it'll be canceled? Because it doesn't include everybody else, or white's so bad that you shouldn't be white?
I think it's just that it brings it brings attention, but I'd say that I think it's the persona of the artist and the transition of the artist, and how no matter what is good, we're looking to destroy things that have achieved greatness. And it's one of those, it touches on one of the sacred cows of what is the prevailing narrative, and at any moment they could decide that it's not fitting the narrative of the day. And since it
Yep.
is, an establishment thing at this point, widely regarded as the king of pop, well known and beloved, it could easily be seen as something that's, needs to be changed or put aside to fit today's changing culture.
Yeah, I see it. I see you could be right in the sense where um, doesn't matter if you're black or white is saying in a positive manner, right? It's all about not care. It's basically Martin Luther King's message. Content of your character is what matter. Let's stop obsessing over people's
Oh, he's getting
pigment.
canceled for sure too, though.
Yeah, true. But whereas the Michael Jackson song is the same kind of narrative, is the same kind of point it's trying to drive, which is the antithesis of what the critical race theory, all this racialism that's being taught and pushed and hustled everywhere. So
Right.
yeah,
But I would say,
I
but
see it could be
critical
right that
race
way.
theory sits within critical theory, which is Marxism, which is
Yeah,
just tear down anything and everything that is established, because if it's established and there's winners and losers, it's therefore bad.
yeah.
Like for an
There's an
extreme
oppressor somewhere.
oversimplification.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Mine would be, so I'm slightly different take here. I'm just going to say nothing specific, but I think soonish there's going to be, how now in some streaming services or movies in general have like or shows, even before the show or the movie starts, they'll have like a label, a warning label now. If Netflix streams it or Disney Plus, it'll be like, I think Disney did that with the Muppets. Whatever streaming service had the Muppets,
Oh yeah. Something,
saying it's
trigger warning or whatever for
yeah,
the.
exactly. Watch at your own, at your own
There's so much of that shit
peril.
now that I can't even keep up with. It's just like,
Yeah,
the left being the left. But that's also the
yeah,
downfall of the right, eh? It's just we're so laissez-faire for stuff like, the left being crazy. Everyone's going to notice they're crazy, but no one does.
yeah. I think even just the general public is just kind of like, oh, you're using extremes. Don't worry about it. And you're like, yeah, but then it happens and you don't care. And then then there's a next step and you're like, okay, well, what about that? And they're like, that's just an extreme. What are you talking about? It's not going to happen. And then it does. Or it's like, it's not my problem until it is. And then the narrative is, the Overton window has changed and you can't even criticize that anymore. But what I was getting to is I think soonish it won't only be labels or warning signs or whatever. It will truly be frowned upon to illegal to watch certain to many movies. I think we're going to get closer and closer to the kind of book burning of the
I
Nazis.
was about to say, that's straight up book burning. That's straight up Maoist. That's straight up
We're
content control. That, yeah.
we're
Yeah.
doing it. We're doing it already with social media, right? So why wouldn't it be the same where it's like, well, I just don't agree with this message. And social media is all, they all pretend it's because you said this bad word or that bad word. When then you turn around and there's 75,000 badder words that are being said, but they're in the context that they like, right? Or the narrative that they're pushing or that
Or it's the
they decide
exact
is
same
correct.
story, and it's just from the opposite viewpoint.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I don't see why the Netflixes of the world and the Disney Pluses of the world wouldn't do the same thing eventually. But again, there's a lot more money involved. They have, you buy the rights to certain movies and shows and stuff like that. But we will see. I think there'll be some sort of balancing act where they try that.
Yeah, and I mean, the easiest place to start would be the Netflixes of the world, right? Just simply don't put it on your service, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I guess this movie that eventually people are going to forget about just isn't available, and then it just gets quietly pushed aside.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't take my Titanic
Give William his Jack.
and my Jack and my Braveheart
Yeah, man,
and my
Braveheart's going to
Saving
get
Private
canceled.
Ryan. Yeah.
Wasn't there something about who's the actor? The one who did
Mel
Castaway.
Gibson. Oh, Tom Hanks. Yeah,
Yeah,
recently.
recently he got in trouble because he too often portrays white
The
protagonists who do good things.
Yeah, I know. He's too
And
positive.
that's not hyperbole. Straight up, got criticized for exactly that.
Yeah. I think it was not even 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah,
this was like,
it was
yeah,
this
made
month
the
for
news and
sure.
everything. Yeah, I mean, what is newsworthy now is just insanely scary. But yes, it did make the news. All
So
right. So Jason, I'll do a quick recap here, and then I'll let you start us off with the hero, which is the first of the archetypes underlying the warrior. So warrior is number 4. As we've said, this is our final of 4 of our 4-parter. We've covered the 4 main archetypes and all of their disciples, if you want. We had to start off with the king, then we followed up with the magician, and then the lover. And we will now finish with the warrior, along with its shadow forms and its also younger childhood forms. So hero is its first childhood form in its positive light. So Jason, go for it.
the reason we're doing this whole series is that we're seeing a crisis in masculinity, and kind of like to our last point with canceled, is where anything positive having to do with masculinity is being shunned or just being quietly suppressed, and anything
Or
that's
co-opted.
or co-opted or
Mm.
anything very much so. Uh, or anything that is negative is being put in the limelight as, this is the danger, so fear this. And we saw that a lot with the king archetype, where the king himself is very benevolent, but the tyrant has the same resources, the same drive, the same intelligence, the same command as the king, but it's used in a negative, narcissistic way, which is bad. And you do need to be aware of that, of people who are tyrants, and you do need to, expunge those tyrants, but not at the cost of not having kings. If you don't have kings, then you don't have benevolent leaders.
I I have this conversation more often than you'd think, actually, when I talk to certain folks. And I'm always like, look, there will always be, these are often people who believe in their utopia, whereas I always try to tell them there will always be bad people. There will always be people with uh, you know malefic malefic
Malefic.
bad
Malicious.
intentions. Yes, thank you. Wow, I just
Words are
rewind
hard.
here with bad intentions, who will simply do bad things, commit atrocities. That's the way it is. The only way to stop those people are for good people to
With
do it.
equally strong but good people. And
Correct. And
that's
that
very much a la Peterson, right? The virtue of a good man is don't be weak and say I'm nice. It's be strong and dangerous, but have that danger against under voluntary control.
right. And a more kind of grotesque example, but I think a good one is, this whole argument, and we won't get into like the whole Second Amendment or pro or anti-gun thing, but what stops a bad guy with guns?
A good guy with guns.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, how could you say that? You're such an idiot. You're so pro gun, blah blah. And you're like, okay, well, okay, no, fine. Let's go with your argument. Don't believe that private citizens should own their own guns. So bad guys will get them illegally. They will. They have. 99.9% of gun crimes, at least I know in Canada, are committed by people who own guns illegally. So they will still get guns. When they commit violence or are in the middle of committing violence, who do you count on? And then they'll be like, well, the police. And you're like, okay, so
But yeah,
those are still in your books good guys with guns, aren't they? Right?
but are of a slower response than people on the scene who would have been able to intervene.
Correct. But at the end of the day, all I'm saying is there is some sort of positive entity with equal to more strength that is there to only use, their strength defensively or in a reactionary manner only when necessary.
And that's without the argument of, hey, by the way, you just gave a monopoly on violence to the state. And that never ends poorly.
Correct. And yeah, exactly. We could get into that. But either way, I'm just saying there's not one sane person in the world, unless you're kind of like, I don't believe in any violence. If violence is committed against me, I'll just take it. I'm like, cool. That's not my philosophy. That's not going to get you very far. But almost everyone will be like, yeah, a bad guy with a gun is stopped by a good guy with a gun. And you're like, yep, like every movie ever made, every book ever written. And just like you'd state here with either private citizens or, a fairly benevolent police force. So there you go.
And that's exactly why I started with this little recap of the king's strength, because a lot of the king's strength comes from the warrior. And the warrior is exactly what you think it is. It's that samurai, it's that warrior, it's the braveheart. And we'll dive deep into it, obviously, but this one's exceedingly straightforward. However, I would say this is one of the most important to cultivate in men. And this is one where there's rites of passages, something else that we've lost in our society and in our
Yeah.
culture. It's where we learn our discipline. It's where we learn our drive. It's really where we hone our backbone and our strength and our resilience. And we can find, I don't know how many examples where that is no longer here today. And we'll get into the warrior, once we go through the childhood archetypes. But as soon as I describe the hero, Will, there's one thing I want you to do for me. Tell me if boys are allowed to be heroes or not today. So, the hero, the boyhood archetype of the warrior in his fullness, is the boyhood drive to test his courage. He's going to jump, he's going to take risks, he's going to, go skiing and build these jumps with his friends. They're
Fall
going to
down trees,
fall down trees, jump off bridges.
break his wrists like 4 times.
That was only 4 times. It's the beginning stages of the hero's journey, right? It's that idealistic boy. He doesn't know his limits yet, but he's willing to go out and test them. He's willing to compete. He's willing to win. He's willing to lose. Sure, he can be a little bit arrogant because he hasn't developed, his sensibilities yet. But he's out there. He's courageous, and he wants to find out what his limits are. And he thinks he doesn't have limits because he hasn't come to that brick wall yet. It's often the last boyhood archetype to develop, and it must happen to become a mature man. You must go through the hero. However, you must also let go of the hero because the hero is ultimately immature. He's it's the kid who's speeding down the road. You might do it a little bit when you're young just to feel that rush once or twice, but you can't go living your life like that.
Yeah. A great example is I used to race downhill skiing, right? The amount of kids that I'd see, younger than me at that point, but the amount of kids, usually boys, flying down the hill and not understanding that if they hit a tree, they die. But they're also in the middle of kind of figuring out how, damn fun this is. So, but again, eventually you kind of realize you're like, oh, things come into play. Physics. I could die. I could get really injured. There's a reason my dad's yelling at me to slow down and be in control. Things like that.
But I would argue you have to take those risks. You have to speed down that hill. And I mean, we were kids. Like, how many thousands of examples can you think of your own life where you've done stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like, how many jumps did we build in the backyards in the hills? Like, how many times did we jump off of roofs? How many times did we speed in cars? How many times did we do anything that was risky? I'll tell one story that I remember that you and me did with some of your friends. After this was when you went to the high school in Dalhousie.
I changed schools, yeah.
So we hung out with a few of your friends, and we went to one of his father's place, and we made a fire in the backyard. So it was just us. There's no parents around. At this point, I think we're maybe 16 or so. No, definitely not 12th grade. It's probably like 10th, 11th grade. So we're right around 16. And we made this bonfire. It was you, me, and a couple other guys. And we had stuff to burn, and there's some scrap and whatever. We go to the garage, and the guy who's the son of the father at the house was like, well, we got this old couch to get rid of. Might as well burn it. So, okay, no big deal. The lot of us, we go over, we grab the couch, and we're looking at it. Look at the couch, looking at the fire. Like, all right, let's toss it in. Toss it in. Looking at the couch on the fire, and we're like, who's getting on, and then who's getting off last? So all four of our dumbasses get onto that couch that's sitting on an open bonfire, and we just all sit there real pretty, just pretend like nothing is going on, all talk to each other, and eventually just jump off one at a time. And actually, I think I was the biggest pussy here because I'm pretty sure I jumped off the
Oh
flaming
yeah,
couch first.
I don't remember, but yeah, I just remember that once that foam catches, it's
Oh man. And I
yeah,
remember one of the guys like we all jumped off like pretty quick because as soon as the first one jumps, everyone's like, oh, okay, I'm not the biggest wuss, so no
yeah,
big deal. But there's
yeah.
always that one guy who pushes it really far. And I remember that like flames were going around him. And we're like, dude, get off, you're going to catch fire. And just eventually
You
walks
win.
off. Yeah, you win.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hero, but with no purpose whatsoever.
But you have to go through that, right? Like we look at it today and we're like, okay, it was stupid, yes, it was fun, yes. But you have to learn those limits. You have to learn that excitement because if you don't, how do you have the strength to do anything? How do you have the balls? How are you able to walk into the unknown confidently if you haven't been a little bit reckless?
Yeah, haven't hurt yourself along the way.
So, yeah, so my question for earlier, are boys still allowed to be heroes?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. It's a debatable one. I would even argue boys, but even children now. That's what I would. To answer your question, I would say most children are not allowed to be heroes, or in their minds, try to be and believe that they are heroes, because you've got such a generation of bulldozer parents. I'm actually in the middle of reading a book called "The Coddling of the American Mind."
That looks like a
Uh,
real good one.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's quite good. Where he basically the thesis of the book is that it's actually two authors, but they talk about how we've made our children fragile and not anti-fragile, right? We do not allow them to do anything that may hurt them. Kind of sounds like today's society as a whole, the last year and a half, but yeah, no. So I would argue that even compared, and things get safer. I get it. You don't want your kids to die or anything like that. But there is a just middle where you should allow your kid to climb a tree and fall down and understand how much that hurts, or that it can actually break parts of your body, so that they're not invincible and they don't try to run. I don't know, run in front of a car, whatever it may be. Kids need to be able to develop those motor skills at the same time.
Mhm.
All of those
Camaraderie
things.
too. If we go back to the
Yeah,
couch example, it was all like we all shared a risky experience. So now we're all a little bit more friends than we were 15 minutes ago.
yeah, yeah. And if we really rewind, yes, I would say there are no rites of passage anymore, especially no physical rites of passage anymore for boys. There are some still left in certain societies and certain cultures. The one I can think of, I actually watched a video not that long ago. I got into like this binge of watching. I forget his name, but he's like this crazy guy who goes out and finds the most painful, venomous bites out there, like in the world,
Ow.
of these insects.
Ugh.
I'll share you a link later. It's pretty fun. Like I got super addicted. I watched like 10 of them one night. But so he goes and finds like all the craziest wasps, the craziest spiders, the craziest ants. So, anyways, if I found another video where it's not the same guy, but this guy does bullet ants in his. Have you ever heard of bullet ants?
Is it the tribe that has like
Yeah,
gloves and you
exactly.
put the hands in the gloves and you gotta stay there for X number of minutes and then
Yeah, so I think it's two Australian dudes who go to this tribe, and that's their rite of passage for the young boys, I believe, is they have to wear mittens with the ants woven in, or essentially like all of their heads are stuck in the inside of the mitts. So all they have like direct chompers onto your fingers. And bullet ants are supposed to be the most painful insect bite in the kingdom, in the animal kingdom, and that is debatable. So it's also, but it is absolutely by far the most painful ant bite. And so this Australian guy, tried it, and he literally had his hands in for like a second. I forget it. And he got a bunch of bites in that second or two, and he like convulsed. They brought him to the hospital. Like he just couldn't do it, and he was in pain for 12 or 24 hours. I forget how long it was.
and how long have the
Anyways,
tribes been staying there?
well, that's the thing, I forget, but it's way longer, right? Like you do it for a long time, minutes and
You'd
minutes
have
and
to go
minutes,
into
or
that
hours. I forget.
accepting it. It's gonna hurt, accept it's gonna hurt, think about something else.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, it's got to be mental. It has to be. But anyways, that's an example of still a current day rite of passage for young men, but that is happens in I don't know if it's like a Papua New Guinea tribe or something like that.
Hey, do you know what? Here's a controversial opinion for you. I bet you that tribe right there who does the whole ant mitten thing, I bet you they don't wonder if boys are boys and girls are girls.
I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably put money on that. So,
Hey, remember that tribe? I think it, or the, yeah, there's a tribe in little islands. Is it south of Australia or north of Australia? Whatever, around Australia, where Buddy was showed up with a Bible. And it's like one of the only uncontacted tribes of humans in the world. This was like maybe 3-4 years ago. It was before COVID, in the olden days. And anyways, the tribes that straight up killed him, shot an arrow at him. It's
I
like
heard about it. Yeah,
I
I
wonder
remember
how
hearing
they're
about it.
doing. Like they're probably doing pretty well right now.
Are they? Yeah, I guess so. In terms of, yeah, they probably don't have COVID. That's for sure. So, what did you choose for your example for the hero?
Oh man, you got a bunch of them. I'll go to my tried and true of Luke Skywalker. He fits
I
so
was teeing it
many.
up for you.
Yeah, you really did that was the softball of softballs. No explanation needed. Luke Skywalker.
Cool. Yeah. No. Agreed. That's a good one. I think any you had mentioned the relation to the king a while ago. I think any warrior, boyhood archetype of the warrior, so the hero. Most kings have been warriors and heroes at one point in their life, right?
Very good.
Most of the time, they're experienced soldiers. They're like whether it's a general or a politician. In the olden days, they were always soldiers beforehand. Things like that.
Mhm. Well,
Knights, kings were knights before they were kings quite often.
I was about to say, even to this day, the royal family, as much of a figurehead family as they are, they still put a big importance on military service and having their male members go into the British Navy or British Army.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I just to list a few more: Hercules, Batman, more the Bruce Wayne kind of growing up and becoming Batman, and then you also have Spider-Man. I think that's Spider-Man's he's one of my favorites, but I think great example of the hero and probably partly the hero. I'd say he's a lot more of a hero than anything else throughout. And that's why he's always kind of that youngish figure. Um, and then I would just say in general the generic. Again, if we're looking at older folks who would be the hero, is the generic late bloomer. So you might be in the hero stage for a while. And I think of myself.
Yeah, well, geez, name of your band even reflected that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man,
Yeah.
I fondly remember the days of being in this archetype, and you can still have little inklings to this day, right? Like maybe you'll tossle around one of your friends. Hell, I remember I was at work at the store, and it was dead, 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 and we had these, the great big water jugs that you put in
Yeah.
the water coolers, and whatever how many liters, like 20, 25 liters that they are, but they got the handles on them, right? So you grab two, and it's like really big, oversized fists. And I grabbed two, my buddy grabbed two. We're like, oh shit, we can box with these. So we just start teeing up, but you couldn't land a hit because the things are so damn big that no matter what, you're always going to hit the other thing.
Yeah.
Until I made the mistake of overreaching and I fully opened myself. I just took one right to the side of the face.
Nice.
But yeah, like I was
Yeah.
what, 24, 25 at the time, but like you can still be an adult and still have those little flashes of that, right?
Yeah, or even the older guy or the dad who goes out onto the soccer field or volleyball field or wherever and thinks he still got it. And maybe he has for 99% of that game until he like pops something, right? And then he's like, fuck.
Okay, well, here's one. Your dad. I remember one time you went skiing and Buddy hits a jump and pulls a perfect 360 in skis.
Yeah. He did.
That was cool.
Actually, he
That was
did.
really
Yeah.
cool.
The only thing is his ski unhooked, but that I blame his binding. The binding was not tight enough for that kind of. He does. It's not like he was doing snow park stuff anymore. But yes, that was a perfectly executed and landed 360. Yeah, true.
All
Yeah,
right.
he impressed there. All right, so the grandstander bully. So that we're going into the two shadow forms of the childhood archetype here. So grandstander bully.
The active shadow form of the hero demands respect and will unleash physically or verbally if he doesn't get it. He takes the sense of invulnerability of the hero to the extreme. He's reckless. In a man, you often see this as road rage, temper problems, sensitive to my turn to not do
Yeah,
words.
insinuation.
Insinuation that he's not manually enough, or
That's
that
why there's two of us. We just help each other out, you know.
perfect.
Oh
And
yes, the small dick syndrome.
small dick syndrome, short man syndrome. It's exactly that. And
Yeah,
you easily can see this in young men, children, older men, adults. Doesn't matter. You can get this one at any age.
yeah, and just it's called the grandstander bully, but the bully really through and through
And
in a lot
find
of
a
ways.
king who still has that. There are none. Every
Right,
king has mastered this. If he still has a bit of that, guarantee you he's a tyrant. There's no way he achieves king.
right. Yeah, fair.
And
So our
I'll,
examples here. Yeah, go ahead.
one that I had for that one, Peter Griffin from Family Guy. Really easy to set off. Like, and I, again, like they'll write the character to do
Yeah, yeah,
whatever,
he's a caricature. Yeah,
but very easy to tip over the line, and then he'll go into something extreme. Like you think of
yeah,
like the fights with the chicken or whatever, right? There's always something that when he's not being a big oaf, if he's written that way for that episode,
yeah.
he's very easy to flick the switch, and all of a sudden it's a big lash out.
Right. I'd say he borders still, however, on like the less tyranty side of the bully. Right. He's a you can't take him that seriously compared to many other bullies. But yes, I absolutely see what you mean, and definitely like the immature part of it, the childhood form, for sure. We got a few here just to run through them. Hades again. Hades is like a good go-to for a lot of shadow forms in Hercules. Brad Wesley. I think. Did you write this first? I think Brad Wesley,
In
or did I?
Roadhouse.
I
I think
forget.
you
Yeah.
wrote this when I was
Okay. Okay. So I took us
good
back here with
example
it.
though, real good
Yeah,
example.
with a few movies. So we're both a fan of Roadhouse, and Brad Wesley's the bad guy in Roadhouse, and he actually
Speaking
happens
of
to be
Family Guy,
in
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. Yeah, Brad Wesley is a very tiny man. Also, now that you mentioned the small man syndrome, so Brad Wesley in Roadhouse, Biff Tannen, the epitome of the bully in Back to the Future, a great
True.
movie.
Yep.
For anyone who hasn't seen Back to the Future, please go watch Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox, Canadian treasure. And then I also added for you, Jason, Laurie Foreman
Yeah, I was
from that
impressed when I
70s
saw that
show.
one. That's a great example.
Yeah. So Laurie, I think, is like, demands respect but doesn't deserve it. She unleashes physically and verbally if she doesn't get what she wants. She takes the sense of invulnerability because she's also got the protection of her dad. And she's absolutely got, she's sensitive. She's got temper, all of that stuff. She's bitchy.
And the last one that I put was the man, the myth, the liquor, Mr. Leahy.
Is which one's that? I don't
That's
know Trailer Park
that's
Boys very
the
well.
drunk trailer park supervisor,
Okay.
the older
Okay.
guy.
Yeah. All right. Gotcha. All right. The coward, the passive shadow form.
So it doesn't have the risk taking of the hero. He avoids confrontation, either physical or mental or moral confrontation. And you see a lot of that reflected in a lot of the other passive shadow forms. A bit more of a conformist. He'll rationalize his inaction as the right thing to do. So you see a lot of that today. Very soy, very passive. Uh, but the thing is, he knows that he's weak. He realizes that he's shying away from challenge, shying away from responsibility, shying away from stepping up, and it really comes from a place of fear. And eventually, he'll lash out, whether it's because of his feelings of ineptitude, whether it's he eventually gets cornered and that's the only thing that he knows how to do. He really doesn't handle challenge well and doesn't seek out confrontation in a healthy way. Um, my favorite example, this one here, where it's someone who is it's a TV show, but by the nature of the profession of the character on the TV show, is always put into conflict. And it's Lewis from Suits. So you got Harvey
Mm,
Specter, the main lawyer, then you got his protege, I forget his name, but Lewis
Mike.
is kind of the second lawyer that who's not quite as good as Harvey, but he's a real snake. He's really easy to get going, and he'll always hide and back
Yeah,
away from conflict, but he's a major lawyer in a major law firm. So he's always cornered into conflict. So whenever he has to defend himself, it always comes out like the bully. It's always brash. It's always brutal. It's like a snake biting every single
yeah,
time.
yeah. Because in his environment, he is, inferior, right? He's not the Harvey Specter. But I will say, absolutely the best actor in that show.
Oh,
Harvey Specter
100%.
sucks as an actor.
100% the best actor.
Yeah, yeah. He carries the show, and that's why he was probably my favorite character. Because he was just there's a lot of bad acting and writing in that show, and he's actually one of the better parts of that better quality. I see you wrote Stu from The Hangover, so that's a good one too. So Ed Helms, that's a good one too. The dentist, right? He up until the end, he's kind of more of that that pussy who gets bossed around by his very unreasonable and bitchy girlfriend who controls his entire life.
Yeah, it's
uh,
like the beta of all betas.
yeah, and which is the point, right? He's that character, so that's a good example too. The one I came up with, I quite like this one is the Steward of Gondor.
Yeah,
So
the father of Faramir and Boromir.
exactly. So again, can be very nasty when he's cornered or when it comes to making very hard decisions. Has a vision for, again, it's not a very active vision. It's a very passive, his certain son should be the king. If it doesn't work that way, then he lashes out. That kind of stuff. I think there's definitely a good part of him that is the coward shadow form.
Never goes to war.
Yeah. Yeah. That too. Yeah, exactly. He would have let the city get overrun
Yeah, hides in the
right
citadel the
away.
whole time. He feasts while others starve
Yeah.
and prepare for
Yeah.
war. Yeah, no, very very good example. So, what do you say we get to the warrior?
Yeah. Let's do it. The adult form.
Do you want to lead this one off, or would you like me to kick it off?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You've been doing a good job of you're our structure guy for this series.
Cool.
I'll pepper some stuff in.
So, the warrior, every successful culture has a warrior archetype present, and often the warrior was one of the main, if not the main, architects who laid the foundation for the society. And if you go back and listen to our series on the fate of empire, and I love coming back to it because it's the hey, you are
I
here
was just about to bring it up.
roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really the roadmap's like, okay, P.S. You are here. Enjoy the decline or not. Either way, you're
Yeah.
going
Well,
down.
yeah. But so the warrior is in this context, though, would be the first phase of
The
empire.
first 2 to 3 phases for
Yeah.
sure. The outburst, that
Yeah.
initial conquest, the age of commerce, the warrior is always very present in each of those. And you always, no matter if you're developing, the commerce of your territory, or you're acquiring the territory, or you're just revolting against a defunct government or leadership and taking your own place in the world, the warrior is always there. You always have that sense of drive and initiative and discipline and morals. And there's no conservatism because there's nothing to conserve. It's just we go, but we know what we're going and we know what we're fighting for. And that's always the bedrock of a civilization.
Although I would argue that many warriors have very strict traditions and kind of morals that they do stick to throughout. So conservative in that sense,
True. Well, a
but
code of
correcting.
honor.
Yes, exactly. Code of honor. So whether that's samurai, whether that's Jedi, right? They all have these very very strict things that a lot of self discipline.
So the very best example of the warrior, just hands down, the best caricature is the samurai. It's an overused example, but it's truly the best characterization of the warrior. And the samurai live by a way of life that they call a do. And I'll let you research for yourself what that means. But just go look at the do and the ways of being and the ways of acting, and you'll understand really the principles that it takes to be virtuous in your action and to be fair and just. And you'll see how the absence of that will very much lead to a society without morals, a society without structure, a society without order. And that's what the warrior brings to the table. He's very much that anchor and that ability to back it up. So a few of the characteristics, and this will resemble a lot the king, because like you said earlier, the warrior often transitions, or the best warriors transition into the king. And it's not so much the best warrior as the best combatant, but the person who embodies the traits of the warrior the best. So, very first one, probably the most controversial. He's aggressive. So, what do we mean when you say that? You think, Will, the warrior's aggressive. What comes to mind?
Swords, chopping limbs off, violence. Yeah.
Yep. That again, right? And that's
Toxic masculinity.
can't have that. But what it means in this sense here is that he will make an all-out effort to achieve his goals. So he's aggressive in the sense that he sees his path and he will walk down it. He's full of effort, he's full of energy, full of vigor, initiative, and is forceful. Is not, it and again, it's forceful in a way that he goes. It's not necessarily I'm going to knock everything over. And it's a neutral tool, right? His aggressiveness can be a tool for good or a tool for
Right.
evil.
Again, you need to be aggressive to fight evil, right?
Right.
In the context of just Lord of the Rings, let's say. How can you defeat things as scary and violent as the Urukai? You got to be pretty violent, on your end as well.
Okay, question for you. Would you rather fight 10 Urukai or one Shelob by yourself?
I so spiders. I'm not gross out by anything, but like I'll admit spiders are pretty gross. But I'd still have to go with Shelob. 10 Urukai is hard.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I got the cardio for the 10 Urukai. I would take my chances with the Urukai. I would do my best Miyamoto Musashi impression and be like, okay, if I could just angle them, they pick them off one at a time. I'm not fighting that fucking spider. No way.
Yeah, you're not a spider fan either.
No, that would have to be my rite of passage there, to go get bit by spiders.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the hobbits took him down at the end of the day, took her down at the end of the day, and hobbits didn't take 10 Urukai down. So I'm like, what are my odds are probably better with the spider, but I don't know. You're right. It all depends how you fight him.
So other than that, the warrior, other than his aggressiveness, he has a purpose. He knows the direction that he's going, and he's purposeful in his actions. So things are not done unnecessarily. Everything is done with purpose. And again, that's a great characteristic of a leader, because you're not just going to have orders to be orders. You're not just going to have things thrown at you to be thrown at you. And once that respect is developed, if the king, who was a warrior, or the warrior brings something to the table or does something or levies a discipline, you can, even without thinking, which you still should, you almost know with certainty that it comes from a good place, that it comes with forethought.
I'm thinking of a boss in a bureaucratic or business setting, where again a good boss does not waste energy. That a boss does not make its employees or its business do inefficient or unnecessary things, which is a lot of what you see in today's red tape bureaucratic world.
We'll take it from a guy who's in one of those roles. You're going to create dissent. People are going to get resentful against you. You're going to lose respect. Things are not going to get done, and people are just not going to listen to you anymore. So if you are going to bring people to action, make sure it's good action, and always take the steps, if there's the time, to make them understand why they're taking the action. Because it's the same thing as when you're little, right? If you were told to do something and just told do it, okay. But if you're told, hey, do this because X, Y, and Z, like, oh, okay, hey, cool, makes sense. Same principle.
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful. That is another characteristic of the warrior, and this is twofold. Of course, there's the like mindfulness, readiness of the warrior, where he's awake and alert and vigilant, observes, sees the lay of the land and plans for his mission. But it's also, and this one's a little more philosophic, be aware that your life is finite and be at peace with what is around you. Understand that you can't control everything, and the things that you can control, do so. And the things that you cannot control, learn to accept them because there's
Yeah,
no other option.
you just picture like all those great warriors in movies and books that just kind of accept their fate and dying on the battlefield, or
The,
we'll name a few at the end there. We've got plenty to choose from.
the warrior very much gets a bad rap as a brute, but I would say is most likely the deepest thinker of all the archetypes. And I think that's why the warrior often becomes the king. Because you could see how the magician, has the tools. You see how the lover has the adaptability and the social skills. But you can really see the warrior that he's the essence that allows the man to develop further.
Right. Well, they've kind of seen death, right? They've seen death, so they've accepted their fate, and to become the king. Well, you have to survive, and they have, but they've accepted this whole relationship with death, which I think is something extremely mature as well, which I don't think most of us are okay with.
No, and well, we're also a very c'est quoi le mot?
Materialist.
No. Oh, why? It's such a simple word. I'm forgetting it. The opposite of religious, secular. We're such a secular
Yes.
society now that with an absence of, let's say, a theological compass, insert whichever theology
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Any dogma, yeah.
Yeah, without any leading dogma, then you kind of fall into the fear of death and the fear of the unknown, and without a fil conducteur to live your moral life.
Yeah, it's almost like a weird reverse nihilism.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know we've spoken on this before, where neither of us are religious, but I think we're kind of getting to a point where we're appreciating at least what religion has brought to society, and we're at least seeing the importance now of of the moral fiber that it plays within a society if it's used properly.
for sure. And also the fact that 99% of humans need a certain type. They need a certain amount or dose of dogma in their daily lives, whether or not they realize it or accept it.
Okay, another big factor to the warrior is that he's adaptable. He's unafraid to try new things. He's not necessarily constrained by convention. If a situation requires a new tool, a new approach, what do I got to lose? Let's give it a go. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Yeah,
He'll look for weakness in his foes. He'll look for opportunity. And you see this a lot in business. This is a huge, huge asset in business. Okay, we have our marketing strategy, this, that. Oh, our competitor got there first. Well, we may have taken 3 months on this plan, but we're going to tweak it. We're going to hit it from a different angle because we're second to the finish line, and that's not doing us any good. So if we want the market share, let's hit it from this direction instead. You have to be adaptable. They're also a minimalist. They're able to travel light. They're unencumbered by superfluidities, and excess. You only carry what you need, and what that does is that it frees you up to be more adaptable. It frees you up to focus on what's important. It frees you up to to be more aggressive because you're not always constrained, you're not always held back, and you're not always thinking, is this the right thing or the wrong thing to do with all this extra baggage.
yeah. Well, I mean, look at every superhero ever, right? Tights. That's it.
Straight
That's
tights.
it.
I
You're
never
like, where do
understood
they
that. Like,
change? Where's their suitcase ever? Like, you never see it. The only one where it's like slightly, the only two where it's a bit more realistic is Spider-Man and Batman, where like Batman goes to his Bat cave, changes, becomes Batman at night, and then goes out. And Spider-Man also has usually, a backpack, and they've been a bit more, uh, they've shown that a bit more over the last decade with Spider-Man stuff, where it's like, okay, it's in his backpack or it's under him. So he'll just has to put the mask on, and then halfway through his flight, he's like taking off his clothes and just shoots his backpack, and he'll go get it later on, right?
and then you got the X-Men that just look like a boy band.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's a very obvious but very important one. He's decisive. The warrior is still a warrior in times of war or peace. He can make decisions in either. He doesn't stand flat footed wondering what the best course of action may be. He's going to act quickly and efficiently, and that comes from a place of experience and training.
He
And
who hesitates is doomed.
exactly. And you think that's why basic training and more advanced trainings in the military, it's all about just drill and repeat and repeat and repeat, because when shit hit the fan, you're not going to elevate to your ideals. You're going to fall back to your training because you're in a
Right.
moment of stress. So the warrior, he's able to decide quickly. He's been in moments of stress. He's been trained. He's been practiced, and he's been through the hurdles to do so. He also stays calm under pressure, and he's prepared. And because he's contemplative, he's often already prepared for the various contingencies that may happen. So when one of them does happen, he's able to act even quicker because, like, oh, okay, plan C. And now we're
Yeah.
going to plan C.
Yeah. Look at Navy SEALs, right? It's drilled into their brains, and it's just the conditioning is extreme so that whatever may happen, under enemy hands in the worst forms of torture or scenarios, they revert back to their training. It's almost muscle memory at that point of
Yep.
how to act. Yeah,
Warrior is also very skillful.
absolutely.
Goes without saying. His confidence comes from his competence, and his training and his mastery of his abilities is what's brought him his competence. And have a king who's not skillful. He's going to be a joke. It's like, okay, why are you leading me again? Have a warrior who's not skillful. It's like, okay, you're brave and everything, but what can you do? And a man must become. You have to develop a skill. That's something we harp on all the time. Even when we're talking about investment, it's be able to do something. Loyalty. The
You fight for someone,
Yeah,
usually, right?
and that's often where the shift from the boyhood hero to the mature man's warrior happens. Is that he no longer just becomes loyal to himself, but he's fighting for a greater cause: his family, his country, his area, his beliefs, his values. It goes from just fight for the sake of fighting to, okay, what am I fighting for? And that becomes
Right.
his loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline, huge one. They cultivate discipline is freedom. There you go. Have a nice day.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Goes without saying.
Goes without saying. Go read Discipline is freedom. He's emotionally detached, and you'll notice there's a lot of components that are really not that like physical to the warrior. A lot of them are psychological, and that's what I meant earlier by it's really the backbone of what becomes the king, because this is where all the forethought and exercise and growth happen. It's almost the hero's journey to become the king is the training that takes to be the warrior. But he's emotionally detached when needed. He's able to pull himself out of the scenario. He's able to make a decision that may appear cold, but is for the greater good. He's facts over feelings. He'll deal with the feelings, but he's facts over feelings.
Facts don't care about your feelings, Jason.
Well, today feelings don't care about your facts. And last but not least, he's a creative destroyer. He will make room for new things to flourish. Quitting a bad habit, tearing down that old garage to make room for flower beds. Maybe it's evicting that tenant who's disturbing the peace, but he will destroy in order to create.
Not just destroy.
Not just destroy for the sake of destroying.
Right. So I'll start it off here with a few examples, or with my first example. And this guy's one of my favorite characters. I mean, historic, but also how he's represented in this film, and that's William Wallace from Braveheart. William Wallace actually borders on the king, I would say, in many respects. He has that kind of hero journey. He has many of the archetypes when he's a kid already, actually. And then he loses his parents. He's orphaned. He's raised by his uncle, who truly teaches him the warrior ways, right? He teaches him to use his mind, before he can use this,
He
which
also
is his
teaches
sword.
him the lover. He sends
Yeah.
him he sends him away to Italy, where actually
on a pilgrimage,
he becomes the magician. He learns languages, but he learns how to interact with people. He learns how to
right?
develop relationships.
Yep,
Yeah, I would
exactly.
say he's more of a king than a warrior, but certainly a
Yes.
warrior.
And this is where I would say he turns more into the warrior is after his spoiler alert, guys. If you haven't seen it, you should have already seen it like 10 times already. It's a great film. But when his wife is murdered, then he turns a bit more into the warrior, where beforehand he was a lot more pensive, reserved, peaceful. I want peace at all costs. If you leave me alone, kind of the libertarian approach. And that doesn't happen. So he becomes that detached warrior in a way, right? Where, of course, he's still this true patriot to Scotland. He cares. He has a great big heart, but he has no problem chopping limbs, decapitating people to honor his wife. Which, when she dies, like in a moment, he's like, "Cool, I can't grieve her right now. I have to. I have some shit to take care of. Right? I have a bunch of Englishmen to kill." So there's definitely big pockets of the movie where he is truly the warrior,
Absolutely.
uh, but again, that lead warrior throughout the movie.
Yeah. And I would say even at some point he embodies a little bit of one of the shadow forms, the sadist, that we'll touch on in a moment, where he
Yes.
becomes exceedingly single-minded and focused. He almost becomes a little bit blind to his surroundings.
Yep, for sure. Any other ones for you?
Um, actually we'll keep on the Mel Gibson train. A very similar character, the father in The Patriot.
Yeah.
Very much a warrior archetype, but also very very similar to William Wallace in Braveheart, is a king to begin with. Then the catalyst. Thank you for everyone who taught us that word. And then after the catalyst of the movie
we
does.
actually, sorry, we just paused here. We had a couple people actually tell us what that word was because we could only think about it in French. So we got a few texts this past week telling us what it was.
Much appreciated. And both of us kind of went like, "Oh shit, how did we not remember that?" And well, to get back to our examples, the samurai, just in general, is by far the single most best example of the warrior. And they were not necessarily kings, right? Because they did report to the shogun or to the lord or the various shoguns. My Japanese culture is a little bit rusty, but the various lords of the land, and I'm pretty sure the shogun was like the equivalent of the king or the emperor,
They also drink like mushroom tea. I'm
maybe.
pretty sure they drank psychedelics.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What I mean, it kind of ties in, right? It's that expansion of the consciousness, is that expansion of the why and the what you're doing.
Yeah.
And other than that, pick a movie character. Maximus,
Yeah.
Maximus
Yeah.
from voyons,
The Gladiator.
Gladiator. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Parts of James Bond are absolutely the modern day warrior gentleman. Goku, you put Goku, which yeah, I think is good too. Rocky, I put that too. Achilles, all the great examples throughout the ages of the warrior.
So what can you do today to access a bit of the war? You say, okay, that sounds cool, but I don't know where to start. What's some of the things? Well, we kind of covered how there's a big dearth in the energy of the warrior in men today, and that's resulted in a whole bunch of nice guys, soy boys, and just a culture without morals and fiber and structure and leadership. Um, watch some movies before Williams canceled comes true. Go watch Braveheart. Go watch The Gladiator. Go watch the Samurai. The Seven Samurai. Go watch the Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah.
All these movies, and try to don't just watch it for the entertainment, but try to understand the motivation of the protagonist. Try to understand where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing.
And
Um,
a lot of what you mentioned is again, it's historical fiction, so you can still even get more of a message out of it because it's based out of reality. It's based out of true events.
yeah, like Braveheart itself is very very far removed
Yeah, yeah.
from the actual story of William Wallace. Like the time period is right. There's a few things that are
Plus,
semi
there's a lot we
correct.
don't know about William Wallace. So,
True.
you know,
Other than that, get in shape. That comes from the competence of the warrior that builds his confidence. And you can't be skillful if you're not physically fit. Go learn
Lift
a
heavy
martial,
things.
lift heavy things, put them back down. Go start boxing, start taekwondo, start jujitsu, start something where you're gonna be forced into the warrior's world. Do something
Yeah.
that scares you. Maybe don't go get bit by spiders like I should maybe do or not, but do something that's a little bit scary. Test your borders a
Hey,
little bit.
question for you. You remember Fear Factor?
Yeah.
So if you were on that show and you just had to like lay down in a bath of spiders or whatever, they used to do gross things like that. Would you do it to hopefully win a chance on that show to win whatever it was,
It was
50,000
it
or
was
50?
50K. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you lay down in a bath filled with spiders, like thousands?
See,
They won't kill you. They won't kill you. They're
I
just
know
gross.
I know I can do it. Like, are we like big tarantula spiders, or are we like little itsy bitsy spiders that we have around here?
What do you prefer?
Neither. Okay, here's my golden rule. If I can see its face, it's too big.
Okay, then I will say a mix of both.
Oh, lovely. Here's the thing. I could mind over matter it and just lay there and let it happen and zone out and just singularly focus. I've trained myself long enough to do that. Here's what I'm wondering: how do I get out of there? Because as soon as the buzzer goes off, I've been there for 60 seconds, let's say. Well, how are the spiders getting taken off of me? Do I just jump up? If I jump up, that's probably when I'm getting bit, right? So it's that. It's like how I can be in the moment and figure out how am I escaping this.
Okay, I think you still have some training to do.
I think we might be right. Oh man, April Fools! I'm gonna get so many like plastic spiders put everywhere.
Yeah. So yeah. No. Anyways, you mentioned get in shape. Find a physical craft, a physical art to do. Um, always be down to learn some skills. Establish terms. That's an important one. Warriors have terms. Everyone, especially you guys out there, should have terms. There are certain things you should truly believe in. There are morals. There are things you should believe in enough to have discipline to make them come true or not come true, depending on what they may be. You should be unmovable for a certain number of key things in your life, things that you hold dearly. Whether that's your, I don't know what it could be, your belief in God, your love to your wife, your time alone, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and know what you hold dear, but also be willing to change your views on it. Be willing to adapt and grow, because that's a big thing about the warrior. He's not stagnant either. Meditate, become more decisive, speak your mind. When you're sure of something, say it confidently. And from there, if someone retorts, accept. Excuse me, accept if someone comes back with a worthwhile counter argument, and don't be afraid to amend your point. But if you think that you are still correct, hold firm, hold your point.
Right. Right. The I liked your last one there. Adopt a minimalist attitude. So today's warrior are the tiny homeowners, tiny house homeowners.
Yes, the mighty man buns and ironic plaid shirts. They're the
Yeah.
warriors of our generation.
Yeah. All right. Let's close off these last two shadow forms of the warrior. The
All right,
sadist is
these
the
say,
active form.
and this one here very much has the intensity, the discipline, and the will of the warrior, but he's become too detached from his emotions. He's forgotten the why of what he's doing, or he's forgotten to take the step back and see the forest for the trees. He can't transition back into regular life. The warrior is his identity.
Mm.
He's disgusted by weakness. If you're not grinding, you're falling behind. They tend to be workaholics. These are the guys who will take pride in working 12-hour days. They'll take comfort with pain to the extreme. They see anything that is, rest as a distraction and distracting from their goals. They'll grind and grind and grind away to try achieve their goals. And I'll tell you what, this is one that I can easily slip into. And I'll give you a story. I could give you many where I've seen myself fall into this. But when I was in university and I was doing track and field, I was always a little bit slow at learning movements. Like I'm still not the best high jumper. I'm still not the best pole vaulter, and I can't throw a javelin to save my life.
You were a good runner, though.
I was a good runner. That's true.
Yeah.
But what I was really, really good at doing was just grinding through the workouts. And I was training for a while 10 hours a week, then 15 hours a week, then 20 hours a week, and then the recovery work on top of that, and then the drill work on top of that. And it was ultimately for a pretty meaningless goal, just athletic performance. But I would, even in the workouts, it was always give me more, give me more. It doesn't suck enough. Like I can grind through it. I can do more. I can edge a little bit further. I'll outwork everyone here, which is good. And the warrior needs that, but it can easily become a crutch. And what I noticed in retrospect after I stepped off the track in the later years was that was good, but I was trying to make up for my fear of failure of trying new movements. So I'll give you an example. Say high jump. I can jump high. I'm an okay high jumper, but I never quite mastered the technique. But I was always afraid to take a step back and bring the bar down, say a foot or whatever, relearn the technique, do it properly, and then move up to the higher bars. I never really want to take that step of coming back down. So I made up for that by just grinding and grinding and grinding. Next time I'll try harder. The time after that I'll try even harder, and then I'm going to try even harder. So it became very easy to fall into that sadist's mindset, especially where I'm physically fit. I can handle a lot of physical exertion, so it's easy for me to fall into that.
Right.
So
yeah, that's a good one.
I've seen myself embody the sadist fully.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say there's also many successful people out there who are truly sadists, right? They don't eat. They become obsessive with something, whether that's an Olympian or could be a certain actor or a CEO, and they do become that type of warrior, the sadist.
Yeah, and I would argue that the sadist is good in doses.
Yeah.
In very short bursts. Like it's that initial startup energy to get the business off the ground, to get the project going. But it's churn and burn. You light that rocket, you let it take off, and then just that's it. Pull back
for sure.
after.
Yeah. So a few big examples here. I like the one you wrote down here, Gerard Butler in Law Abiding Citizen. I think that's a great example of the sadist. Once his family's murdered, he has this 20-year plan or 10-year plan to plot his revenge, and it's a brutal, gruesome one, which I endorse. which is the point of the movie.
Hi, my name's William, and I endorse murder.
Well, that's the whole plot of the movie.
I know. I saw the movie. I'm giving you a soundbite here.
Everybody, I think, was rooting for him.
And cut there when we do get a little bit more recognition. Some cancel fuel.
Mm-hmm. Anything from you?
Similar to my example that I gave myself, Tigress from Kung Fu Panda.
Yes.
She was very much the same thing. She would just grind and grind and grind, but she would never really learn the lessons behind. She could do the movement, she could do everything, and she was the hardest worker of all the animals and the warriors. But she never could become the master.
She never had chi.
She never had chi. She never saw.
Yeah, she wasn't that full warrior. The last thing I'll say is parts of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, definitely a sadist. When Absolutely. He was like world champion.
What it gave, right? So that's kind of that trade-off of, it can pay off. It doesn't always,
absolutely.
But it can pay off.
That's why I said a lot of your very successful people in specific fields are absolutely sadists, right? Where you're just like, I worked hard today. It was 10 hours. I usually don't do that. And then, the person next to you who's a CEO or whatever, they're like, yeah, I work 14-hour days, like 6 or 7 days a week every year. Like every day, every year. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that was, that's mentally not plausible for me. Like I just can't do that. So the second shadow form and last we'll be talking about is the masochist. So the passive form.
Right. So this one is very similar to the coward. So the example we used from that one was Lewis from Suits. But this one here, he does not draw boundaries. So it doesn't have the erect strength of the of the warrior. This is the guy. He can hate his job, hate his relationships, but he doesn't cut his losses. He's afraid to leave. He has a scarcity mindset, and that's really the cornerstone here. The warrior has an abundance mindset in the sense that he knows he has the ability to go out and make more money, make more connections, get more resources. Whereas the masochist, he's scared and he has a scarcity mindset. He doesn't think that he has the abilities. So he'll take disrespect. He has no backbone. And he enjoys, to a certain extent, being the martyr because he has comfort in what he knows. It's brought him this far, so what else can I do? And the examples I took from that one, Corey and Trevor from Trailer Park Boys, they get pushed around. That's like the two like goons essentially of the show. They just get used and abused by the guys. Their date for them, their jail cover, their you name it. There's their lap dogs. They literally train them like dogs for a while. It's complete masochism that they do to themselves.
Or you take the most direct form ever is Channing Tatum in This Is the End. Have you seen that?
I've never seen it.
Oh my God. He's like someone's bitch, and he's basically like in this S&M costume with like a leash the entire movie. He's someone's pet essentially, like sex pet.
Well, there you go, right?
Yeah. But the better example I wrote is George McFly. So again, Back to the Future, that's the dad. So Michael J. Fox goes back in time, and he realizes just how, current day too, but he realizes how much of a coward his dad has been or is. He's just a guy with zero confidence, zero potential in anything unless he builds that confidence. And he kind of slightly changes his dad's fate to help change the entire future so that he's not bossed around and bullied his entire life by Biff Tannen. So I think he's a great example of the masochist.
So what do you say we leave it there? We're running a little bit long on this one, and maybe when we come to revisit our series, we could take a character or two and kind of do a deep dive on how the various archetypes are expressed for positive and for negative, and it might be a nice little way to put it all together into a singular body. I know one character that came up a lot was James Bond, and I think he would be a fun one to look at where he has a lot of the fullness, but he also has a lot of the shadow forms within him as well. For
sure, which is what makes him great. A great character, an interesting character. So yeah, that sounds good. We have been running long, so we'll call it quits here for tonight. And maybe next episode we can still, even though we're finished our series, we could go through a little lightning round, you and me, on a bit of this pop culture stuff.
That sounds good. Well, everyone, thank you very much for watching. This was another episode of The Independent Mindset. You can find us wherever podcasts are found, Spotify, Apple, and many others I don't know the name. We have our Instagram page, The Indie Mindset, and then as well on YouTube, The Independent Mindset, and same on Facebook. And if you enjoyed this series or you have an idea for another series you'd like us to cover, reach out. We're all ears. This was a lot of fun. A little bit of pop psych, a little bit of human nature, and a whole lot of Star Wars. So that was a good one for me.
Who doesn't like that? There you go. All right. Catch us next time, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.